may sound strange, but what saved me was gratitude. But what could I be grateful for in that little cell? Well, I had to start small. I had air, right? Maybe it was stale and foul, but I had air. I had water that didn't make me sick. Food came through the slot in the door every day. I knew I wasn't forgotten. My family, I knew someday it would be over and my family would still be there.
You're listening to the WenMoonPodcast,
sponsored by Alpha Dow.
Join us every week to listen to up-to-date news on the markets, macro, and the best degenerate stories you can't find anywhere else. Nothing on this show should be taken as financial advice. The opinions spoken here from the host and guests are our own personal opinions and should not be taken as financial advice. Now, let's get to the hosts, Clay and Taryn, and get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the WenMoonPodcast. This is our first episode, and we're happy to have you here. We have a very special guest on today, Miss Lynn Ulbricht. She is the mother of Ross Ulbricht. He was the founder of the Silk Road. For you guys that don't know me, my name is Clay. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I've been involved in Bitcoin since 2013. I am now traveling around to conferences, networking, doing angel investing. I have a co-host from the UK, Taryn. If you can, please give yourself a little intro.
Thanks, Clay. Everyone, welcome to our first ever podcast. Lynn, it's great to have you on. I'm Taryn. I'm based out of Cambridge in the UK. I'm actually a physics student at Cambridge University. I also lead Cambridge Blockchain Society, which is a student-run organization on campus. I'm very plugged into student communities. I've been in crypto for about 2.5 years, and very, very happy to be, me and Clay are both members of Alpha Dow, and we're very happy to be sponsored by Alpha Dow. Alpha Dow is an exclusive community of the top Web3 builders, founders, and investors. We provide access to proprietary insights, research, and curated project and deal flow. For now, we're headquartered out of a triplex in the heart of Manhattan in New York, where we regularly host events. And in those events, you can meet fellow Alpha Dow members, founders, builders, and enthusiasts. A membership will also give you access to the Venture DAO, priority access to Alpha events, art clubs, houses, etc. If you're interested in joining us, and if you think you have what it takes, visit the link below. Clay, over to you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's introduce Miss Lynn Ulbricht. Lynn, how are you? I met you out in Miami for Bitcoin Miami, and I made it pretty much, you were my main priority to get to Miami to meet you, ask you if you'd be on our first ever podcast. Ross and his story is very special to me. And for those that don't know, Ross was one of the first pioneers of Bitcoin. It wouldn't have gotten mainstream traction, attention without Ross. Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit about a quick dive into the Silk Road?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be your first guest. I'm sorry. What did you want me to start with again?
No worries.
Right there. I'm very overloaded at the moment.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just kind of asking you what you've been up to since Bitcoin Miami after I met you. And then can you give everyone just a kind of a quick rundown on what the Silk Road was? And then we'll get into a deeper dive a little bit later.
Sure. Well, generally, I'm doing what I always do, which is network a lot. I've just left Freedom Fest, which was great. I was able to talk to some influential politicians about Ross, they were very sympathetic. I think they're going to help us, get some attention here, because what we're after is clemency. We're after a commutation from the president of the United States, whoever that happens to be at the time. And right now it's, of course, President Biden. Mm-hmm. And we really are after some kind of relief for Ross, because this sentence that he was given is, in my opinion, an abuse of power and way out of line for a first-time nonviolent offender, because it's essentially a death in prison sentence. He is double life plus 40 years without parole. This is more than twice what El Chapo got, to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And there's no violence in his convictions. He was never accused of trial of any kind of bodily injury or being a danger to anyone. And so this puts us all in peril, because it creates a precedent for excessive sentencing, which is a big problem in our criminal justice system. So whatever I can do to move us towards the goal of that little piece of paper being signed is what I do. And that includes networking. It includes lots of communications with people. Just that's what I've been doing since you saw me in Miami. And then I left I did take a little break with family for about a week, which was great. And then went to that other conference in Las Vegas, Freedom Fest, which had a lot of really interesting speakers as well.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about Ross actually as a kid and growing up? What kind of kid was he? Things like that.
Honestly, I know I'm his mother, so people might roll their eyes, but Ross was the sweetest, easiest kid to raise, laid back, go with the flow kind of kid. He, he was a regular boy, he's out there, running around with his friends and not that as a girl, I didn't do the same, but, he was very artistic, very, he drew a lot, still is artistic. Our whole family is on my side anyway. And he's, he was easy to take places. One of my goals as a mother was to have my children be people that other people liked being around, so I could take them with me a lot. And both my kids were like that. They're, they were easy that way. And he was just we used to call him Buddha baby, because he would just look like a little Buddha sitting there, just whatever's going on. Very observant. He had a lot of, and people would comment, some people, teachers and so forth. He had great powers of concentration, because he'd get into a creative thing and just be looking at this thing, and whether he's building a little model or drawing or whatever it was, he had a lot of concentration. And I think he still does. So, and then, he had his friends and, the usual stuff growing up. And and he did get a full scholarship to the University of Texas at Dallas, where he worked in a solar cell lab, where he was developing solar technology and energy, and wrote several professional papers about it as an undergrad. Unfortunately, when he was arrested, they just took him down. The university took those down. Didn't want the association, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious. Can we access those? Are you able to? Do you have those?
I might have at least one of them. Let me write that down, and I'll. I think so.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah, and then he went on and also got was a scholarship to get his master's in material science, and at Penn State, and excelled there, and was going to go on to, or was looking at going on to get his PhD at Cornell, but then he found Austrian economics and became completely involved in all of that, and ended up bringing Ron Paul to Penn State, and was very involved in all of that, and just was his passion. So, he told me, well, listen, I'm not going to, Mom, I'm not going to go to Cornell after all. And I'm like, what? Huh? What? And he's like, really passionate about this other thing. And I'm like, oh no, no, don't tell me that. But actually, I think it was obviously, except for the fact that he was arrested, I understand why he did, because people who had worked for their PhDs had said, you've got to be passionate about it. And if you have something else, it's just too hard. So he became an entrepreneur, and then created Silk Road, because he wanted people to have the experience of a free private market. That was his goal. It was not to be a drug kingpin or any of that.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's where I had a connection with Ross when I first started learning about it, because I was living in Vegas back in 2005 to 15, and I really didn't care about politics back then. And Ron Paul came to speak, and a buddy of mine took me, and I just really fell in love with Ron Paul. This was back when he was running in 2008, and I really his yeah, yeah, his message really resonated with me about, the libertarian ideals, and how to take care of yourself, and we don't need the government and things like this, and non-intervention, foreign policy and things like that. So I definitely see how Ross and a lot of other people were attracted to the Ron Paul movement back in the day. Yeah, Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about the start of Silk Road? That was January 2011, and then kind of explain what the Silk Road actually was.
Was not aware of the Silk Road or any of that. So I didn't
Oh, okay.
Anything about the start, except that I can say that Ross was very passionate about Bitcoin. He was talking to me about it all the time. I even said to him, should I get some? And he goes, no, Mom, it's too volatile. Well, could have thrown $100 at it, but I'm like, oh, that was bad advice. But anyway, yeah, I mean, who knew that it was going to do what it did? But he was very passionate about it. He explained it to me and answered my questions, and also about free markets and wanting to have people understand what that meant. And he actually created a video game where people in the video game could have a free market. And there were people who were interested in it, and he was in some kind of workshop thing with other people, but with different projects, but ultimately didn't sell. So he turned to the internet. Not that he's a programmer; he's not a programmer, but he had assistance with creating the site.
Right,
I think,
right.
in a way, I very much resonate with Ross. I'm a physics student. It takes a sense of like very strong problem solving skills to have that scientific aptitude, which is what I also think Ross has drawn towards. Bitcoin was trying to solve a very large problem that existed in global financial systems. And how do you think Ross's scientific aptitude played out in his sort of love for Bitcoin, and why he became so passionate about this like open source financial system?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, I do not have an aptitude for that. He did not get that from me. And, it's funny because people say, well, we want to interview about Bitcoin. And I'm like, it's not genetic. Okay. Or at least from my perspective. He does have that aptitude, and he's very smart. And he also is motivated by solving problems. I mean, Bitcoin solves a lot of problems, for the unbanked and for monetary freedom and all of that. And so he was passionate about what it could do, and what it could lead to. And of course it has, right? It's, here we are. But at the time during the trial, very few people had even heard of Bitcoin. So it was this weird, dark, scary thing to the jurors for the most part.
Right.
And it was the dark web, as was all of that, was marijuana, which was not so legal as it is now. And that was what was mostly sold on Silk Road. Yeah, I think so. And he's still at it. He's still, you can read his writings on medium.com as well as on our website. He was trying to solve, for example, he has a paper up there. I can't explain the technical part, but it's too advanced for me. But there was a problem with WhatsApp keeping privacy, but bad people who are trafficking children and stuff like that, exploiting them, were using that shield to do it. And Ross has written a paper trying to solve the problem of keeping the privacy, but still not allowing this to happen. And we even ran it by some, highly technical people who said, this has promise, you should develop it, but he can't, because he can't get on the internet, he can't get on a computer. And so here we are, we maybe would have a solution for that, but it won't happen until he can have the freedom to do it. But he wants to help. He wants to take what he can do. And that's what he was trying to do then too. is solve problems and make the world a better place.
Right. So, yeah, for some of the viewers and listeners, they don't really know what the Silk Road was. It was basically an online marketplace where people could buy and sell whatever they wanted. However, there were a few restrictions. You couldn't have like a hitman or something like that. There was no child pornography at all. You could not sell stolen goods or stolen information. So people's names and addresses and things like that. So there was some moderation. The majority of things being bought and sold were drugs and things like that, which, you know, Ross really wasn't behind that, but he was okay, I guess, with it because, you know, he believed there should just be free trade, and he had the libertarian thinking of people should be able to put in their bodies whatever they want. We don't need government intervention in that. But yeah, they definitely had rules. So it wasn't like it was totally the Wild West with child pornography and things like that. They did anything like that was automatically taken down, not allowed. So,
and that's even in the trial evidence. So it was a basic principle of voluntary interaction, non-aggression principle, no force allowed. And you could have an exchange with someone as long as it didn't hurt a third party.
Right.
So real simple. It's and so the third party with child porn is that child. They're a victim of that. So that was not permitted. And the stolen property, the legitimate owner is a victim, et cetera. So that's accurate. And it's often, I appreciate you bringing it up because it's often very much distorted, and even big publications like Newsweek said stuff about, trafficking. And it's like, it's completely not true.
Right.
It's much more, dramatic and sensationalistic, but that's true. And I've even talked extensively with one of the admins, Curtis Green, and he said, we were a lot of times all day catching people doing this, kicking them off, keeping it to that rule of don't hurt a third party, voluntary. If it's not voluntary, it shouldn't be on there.
Right. So 2011, it was created. 2012, it's going. And then there was a Gawker article written. That's really what got the Silk Road to the mainstream. Unfortunately, that's what got the law enforcement, FBI, all those types of agencies more aware of what was going on. And then in 2013, Ross was arrested in California and then expedited to New York City for a federal trial. Is that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So we can't get too much into the specifics of the trial because obviously we're still trying to get Ross free and get his clemency. He was sentenced on May 29th, double life without parole, plus 40 years. Lynn, what was going through your mind when you heard this?
It was just kind of total shock. And I mean, it was a very dark day. I just remember, his dad and I going home, and we're just sitting there just like, oh my God, how can we absorb this? How can we, and actually the whole thing, the shock led to me almost dying from heart failure, from a heart thing. Later, it's just kind of the stress of the whole thing was so bad. And, but then, once I kind of recovered from that, I'm like, okay, we're just going to do the next thing to get him out. This cannot stand. And I still feel this sentence cannot stand. It's so completely, I talk to people or write with people or whatever about, well, he did the crime, do the time, blah, 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 and it's like, well, first of all, it should be committed. The sentence should fit the crime. But, then they hear the sentence and they're just like, oh my God, what? I mean, people can't believe it, and he didn't blow up a building. He didn't traffic children. He didn't murder anyone. He didn't, it's all of that. And now there is things out on the internet about murder for hire, which was based on anonymous chats that were never proven. They never brought it to trial, which would have given Ross a chance to defend himself.
Right.
it's been something that the media has picked up on, and supposedly is true, but and often refer to a Wired article that has the dialogue between the federal agent and ZPR. They never say Ross's name because it was never. It's anonymous chats. People have access, but at the top of the dialogue is Ross's picture, and this is how the media does things. They don't say it's Ross. They're not libeling him, but there's his picture. So of course people think it's Ross.
Right.
This
and
is
that's
what
one of the
media for all these years, and Ross can't even speak. So it's been a lesson. It's been a very interesting lesson on how the media operates.
Yeah. And we can't get too much into it, but that's one of the most absurd things that I think happened was that, this was allowed to be brought up in his trial, that he was a danger to society, and he was never convicted of any of this, but they still allowed it in his trial that he was, trying to get people killed. There was no evidence of this. He was never convicted of anything. A lot of this was anonymous. The account that was being used on the Silk Road was still being used, I believe, when he was in jail.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that was discovered after trial.
Mhm.
But there was a folder that was discovered, and yes, DPR, someone going by that handle, accessed the Silk Road forum after Ross had been in prison for 7 weeks. There's no way he could get on the internet. He was in solitary. And there were corrupt agents who went to prison they were on Silk Road. They were stealing from the vendors. They had free access. They could do what they want. They could act as DPR. And the jury never heard about it. The jury was not allowed to know this. And that's a problem for me, but obviously, and that's just a proven fact that they had done time. I think one of them, maybe both, are out now.
Yeah, that's the other travesty is that there were people selling extremely large amounts of drugs that got caught, and their sentence was nothing compared to Ross's, who basically just hosted the site.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's absolutely right. All the Silk Road defendants, I believe, are either out or are going to be out very, very soon. And this includes the biggest drug seller, Jan Slomp, who had the same offense level as Ross. They give you a level in the prison, same offense level, and he got 10 years and he got out in 7 because of COVID.
Yeah.
Blake Menthol, who was running Silk Road 2, which was a copycat site that the government itself said was identical, except that it was bigger and sold more drugs. He never even went to prison. He never went to trial. He was just released after 13 days for some reason, just kind of poof, gone, disappeared. And yet Ross, 2 centuries, essentially, a death in prison sentence. So this is a huge disparity of sentencing that's wrong. It's actually against the law. The Sentencing Reform Act said 2 crimes that are similar should be similarly punished. And yet, I mean, Michael Wegand, who was the guy who was responsible for the back door of all of the technical part of Silk Road, was recently arrested and he got 8 months. Couldn't happen without him.
Right.
It's just way out of kilter, but I think Ross is a symbol, and he was the idea guy. So
yeah, that was my original thinking when I first started taking a deep dive into the Silk Road and the case, was that they basically just made an example out of Ross. If you're using this Bitcoin, because it was very new at the time, not a lot of people knew about it. A couple of the prosecutors, I think, were very anti-Bitcoin. I think they just kind of made an example of Ross. If you use this to do things, you're going down hard. I mean,
they said that's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they were making an example.
Yeah, I mean, to get double life without parole at his age, with basically he had never been in trouble for
no criminal history, no
it's
history of any kind of violence
absurd.
Or anything like that. Yeah, no, never been arrested.
Yeah.
So it needs to be corrected, and I think it will. I just don't want it to be so long that, I mean, he's 38 now, his 30s are going by, and he has so much to offer, and it's just such a waste. And
Yeah.
and look, he's not going to do it again. It's not like you have to worry about reoffending or recidivism, like he'll be back in prison again. Ross is not a problem in that regard.
Right. Can you tell
Ross
us
is
a
also,
little bit? Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, Ross is also very inspirational. Ever since he has started serving his sentence, I remember his contributions to, making changes to the Maker Protocol back in 2020. And he's been writing a lot of poetry and some pieces on, how he's handling his sentence. Talks about consciousness, death. He talks about, the beauty in life. I think one of my favorite articles by him was called Decentralized Social Media, where he talks about the effect social media has been having on today's population. But just wanted to ask you, so Ross regularly writes you letters, and what do you think his day-to-day looks like now, and what he spends his time doing? Because he's very talented. He still keeps on top of readings, but we'd like to hear more from you on that.
Sure. Yeah, well, COVID kind of disrupted many things. I mean, I didn't see him for over a year, and he was in a cell, essentially an 8x10 cell, 24 hours a day for long stretches of time, or 22 hours, and got out a couple hours. It was hard. And he did a lot of meditating, a lot of reading, a lot of praying, a lot of writing, because he uses his time very constructively. He doesn't, and this isn't a criticism. I don't blame anybody for watching tons of TV or in prison, you're trying to escape or whatever, but he's very conscious about wanting to be productive and not give in to that. But he goes outside when he can. But he's also involved in the challenge program, and it's a special program in there that is based, I believe, in cognitive therapy, where it's really communication and trying to help the people in there to talk about their feelings, to help each other, to support each other, and having a constructive life in prison. And Ross he's really enjoying it a lot. He's really involved in it, and they've said to him he's really excelling in it, because Ross has a big heart for people, and he's a very good communicator, and he's not judgmental. Ross is very unjudgmental, he just doesn't get caught up in that. I mean, I used to be like, oh, the judge, oh my God, that woman, kind of thing, and he's like, well, we're not going to go there. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like, that's not. He doesn't, and he writes about not holding on to, at first, being bitter and being angry. And he said, it's just going to eat me alive and it won't hurt them. And so he's very much like that. And he's a good model for me, because I tend to get kind of tense about stuff sometimes. And so he's very good at what he's doing in the challenge program. And he's also he's taught physics and math, and he's tutored people. I mean, even after sentencing, he came back to the prison and was tutoring someone. They wrote about it because they couldn't believe he would be so giving about it. But he's really wants to help people. He's a lot of sympathy for the people in there. We have a charity from Ross's art was auctioned as an NFT a couple of times, and we have a large amount of money from it set aside for charity, and we are now supporting, and Ross is really saying this is what really means a lot to me. For one program, a couple of programs that are already doing this is bringing children to see their incarcerated parents, because we know the families, we get to know the families and the kids in there, and it's hard for them to afford it. It's hard for them to get there. And so this allows this to happen. So we're supporting a couple of projects with that, as well as some with criminal justice reform and other ways to help the people that, Ross's fellow prisoners and their families. So yeah, he really is an example of someone who cares about people. And when I read about, this brutal kingpin. I'm like, oh, geez, it's the farthest from the truth, you
Right.
know?
How often do you get to see him, and what is that experience like? Is he, forgive my ignorance, but when you get to visit him, does he come out wearing the handcuffs? Is he allowed the handcuffs off? I don't, can you give us a little bit about that, and how much time you get with him and what you guys usually chat about?
Mhm. Yeah, well, this is, changes because of COVID, but now, right at this moment, I just saw him Sunday, and it's always so great to see Ross. And we can't hug. Before COVID we could hug, so we can, but we're separated by plastic barriers. You can see through it, but it's this plastic on a frame, and then we have masks, but we can put our hands up and do that through the plastic. And so, and it's always great to see him. It's a bit of a process going in there, but I'm used to it. I know a lot of the guards now. I've been going for so long. I know a lot of the other visitors. You go in, and he has come to me in handcuffs, but that was years ago. He hasn't had that kind of thing. He hasn't needed it. He doesn't have any infractions or anything like that. That was when he was first arrested, which was pretty shocking, to be honest. It was like, oh my God. But no, he just comes out and he's wearing a jumpsuit. They have to put on different clothes, I believe, and come out. And we sit across from each other and just talk about whatever. And, I was there for, it's close to 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours. It's a little, and next weekend, 2 weeks, I'll be able to see him for Saturday and Sunday. I wasn't there for Saturday because of Freedom Fest, but I wanted to use that time to network for him. But so every 2 weeks, it used to be every week, but every 2 weeks there's visitors, and different family members and loved ones visit him, friends. Usually always has a visit. I think it's so important for him to have a visit, and I feel really bad for the people who don't, and most of them don't. There were like 3 of us there yesterday in this huge room. So it's very sad, but I followed Ross around the country to make sure that he did have a visit, because I felt like that lifeline, and I do feel that lifeline is so important to keep him, emotionally, mentally, all of that healthy. And he's still him, we laugh and we pray together, and we, talk about everything. And so it's always really great to see him. As far as dealing with the prison, I'm kind of used to it. And most of the people in there are decent people, so it's just kind of a thing, go into prison, and it's just another world.
Yeah.
And I hate being there so long.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the change.org petition? I believe it has over 500,000 signatures.
No, I wish. It's not quite. I should have checked.
Oh, I thought it was.
Almost.
Oh, okay.
And and it's taken on a new importance to me, because there's no guarantee that, you reach a certain number and you get out. That is not the case. But I was recently on a Zoom call with others. A bunch of us were on a Zoom call with the pardon attorney, Elizabeth Orley, and I was really impressed with her. She was very compassionate, and she's a former defense attorney, and she really wanted to help everybody submit a good petition, and she was giving us different pointers. And one of the things she did say was that public opinion matters. So if you have a strong petition, they would look at that. And so my goal is 500,000 by, in the next few months. We're almost there. I should have looked, but
I've got it in front of me, 485,504 signatures.
Thank
Wow.
you.
So there's less than 15,000 signatures.
15,000 signatures. And, that's doable. That's very doable. And then I can write 500,000 when I write things. And that million is a really good, now I can say almost or whatever. But so we have a widespread, and you don't have to be American on change.org. It's a worldwide effort. And it means a lot. It really means a lot that many people want him to have some mercy here and to be able to come out into the world. I've gone to legislators, for example, and said, hey, look at this petition. And they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot of people, because I can talk and talk and talk about my son. No, 500,000 people feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
It makes an impression. It helps. So really, change.org, there's a red button at the top of our homepage, and or change freeross.org/petition. And and then we have a QR code that people can share and stuff like that.
By the way, all of this will be in the description below. If you guys would like to show love, send Ross some good regards. This will be an amazing way to do this.
It would. And to share it. And big people who are big on social media, getting them to tweet it or post it it really helps too, because they have, hundreds of thousands of followers. So that would really be helpful. So yeah.
Ross talks a lot about love and him wanting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. His final essay was very, very emotional to me. I also think, if this petition gets to 500,000, Ross himself would feel the love of the Bitcoin community, and like across crypto and Web3. Ross built Silk Road as the first use case of Bitcoin. It brought the first, 100,000 users into this open financial ecosystem. So if you guys are listening, definitely just head there and show all your love, all your support. This means a lot to everyone who's been inspired by Ross himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the movement is growing. We are getting multiple senators, Congress people that have actually sent out tweets about Ross's sentence, just saying that it's just absurd. It's insane, we've had quite a few I've seen speaking out about it. So like we said, click the link at the bottom, sign the petition. Lynn, what can your everyday average person do to kind of help support, get the word out besides the change.org position? What can everyday people do?
Well, of course, social media is huge. I'm an older person. It's not my natural milieu at all. And I have some help. Loved ones are up there and other supporters that have different accounts, and they're always trying to, set the record straight and set the narrative straight, but and promote it. But and we have a Free Ross Friday, hashtag Free Ross Friday and hashtag Free Ross that we're hoping to get trending. Getting attention on social media is a big deal, right? And that's how you do get that kind of mass support for things. And so that any ways to do that is really helpful. Again, if someone has political connections, knows someone who knows someone, or knows a politician or someone who has influence, that's so helpful. Please contact me. And I would like to meet them and see if they're willing to, use their connections to bring attention to Ross's case. That's really the bottom line for me, is I'm always looking to bring on help and people who can duplicate that message so that it becomes something that is very easily done and makes sense. And it's just a signature on a piece of paper. It's people and paperwork. This is doable. Ross and I personally know people who he's known in prison who are out now because of clemency. Mm-hmm. This is doable. And especially in this case, the sentence was so harsh, so excessive, that is really a huge aspect. It needs to be corrected for all of us. It shouldn't be allowed to be a sentence like that for a nonviolent first-time offender.
Right. At the end of 2021, guys, who are not familiar with Ross, there was a free Ross DAO that was set up. Mm-hmm. That was specifically aimed at bringing the community together and also raising money to help Ross's case. I believe the NFT collection of Ross's artwork was brought out by the DAO, which contributed. about $6 million towards Ross's case. And there is still a healthy treasury that that DAV aims to use to transform prison reform and also to help free Ross. And they also want to share the work of Ross with the world. And Lynn, what is your experience with the community that Ross helped bring together? You know, or clearly more than 500,000 people.
Yeah. Well, I've met so many great people, and sincere and lovely people. It's the silver lining in this whole thing, and but the sad part for me is, of course, is that Ross hasn't met them. And I look forward to the day when he does. And the DAO was, wow, what an amazing thing. And I got to meet many of them at the Bitcoin conference in person and got to know them. And they're great. They have great ideas. They're young. They have energy. They're putting it out there. They're working hard. And so it's a separate entity. It's not our defense fund. That is a separate thing that we and Ross can say, okay, we want to hire this lawyer and we want to, or we want to do this thing or whatever. Because a DAO requires votes to do things like that. And we have our separate thing that's our fund. It's on our website, freeross.org, but they also have their projects, and they don't do any projects without clearing it with an advisory council that is made up of me and other loved ones and friends who care about Ross, and a lawyer who's also a friend, who care about Ross. And the criteria is we can veto any proposal that would hurt Ross or his clemency efforts. But otherwise, they come up with very creative and of things, and they're great people. And I really appreciate any of that kind of support. It's been.
By the way, guys, Ross's artwork is really, really good. I was at Bitcoin Miami, like I was saying earlier, and I actually bid on a piece. I think I bid like 40,000. It got up into like the mid six figures or something like that. But if you remember the piece, Lynn, I'm sure you do. It was the one where he was, I believe, envisioning what life was like outside of the walls, and it had, I think a little bit of the prison had like a deer out there. Yeah.
What happens to the cages?
Yes.
What happens?
Yes, that one.
I love that one. Yeah, that's really a beautiful one. It's a landscape.
The one I bid on, yeah.
Towers, but it's all deteriorating and the deer's running through the field. And yeah, that was really good. What else was so astounding was his animation.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I spoke about it at the thing, but it's like he did over 300 frames. He did it all by hand so that they would all correctly. He had a light table made out of a plastic bowl, translucent plastic bowl with a light under it that he could connect every little thing. He said it was really a lot of work, but he, and it really flows, and it has so much, I don't know, feeling to it. And then we worked with some animators, and people colored it and had music and everything. But it's so incredible that he did this. There's a flower in it that kind of grows. He drew that flower every day, that plant, which he grew from apple seeds. He's done many of those. He's grown many plants. And as it turned towards the light, every day it was a little different. And he drew it every day so that when he put it all together, it would be realistic. He also did this whole thing with perspective and walking back into it's amazing. It really was. Yeah. And he did all by hand. So that's really worth looking at.
I think we're going to edit the animation into this podcast.
We definitely will. We definitely should.
Yeah.
That would be pretty,
the DAO bought it, and they have it. And so, yeah, that was great. And so the support means everything, guys. I'm like, look, I'm me. We have, close family and loved ones. There's only a few of us. I mean, not much. And then lots of help. We didn't have the help and the encouragement. I don't know. It's a big, big fight. It's a big task.
Yeah. And well, Ross is really lucky to have you, because you're out there fighting every single day. And I remember there was a conference here in Dallas, I want to say 2017 maybe, and you spoke here. That's when I first heard you speak in person. I believe it was 2017, but you're out there every day fighting in the trenches, doing emails, phone calls, interviews, speaking at conferences. So Ross is very, very lucky to have you as a mother, you know.
Yeah. Well, I said, Ross, when I get you out, you need to take care of me. He goes, I will be your slave. I will be your slave, Mom. And I said, hey, that was the right answer. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, he's very grateful. And and to everyone who's helped,
Yeah. Taryn, do you have anything else?
Nothing. Lynn, it was lovely talking to you today. I just rewatched the animation as well. It brought a tear to my eye. It's such a beautiful animation. There's also one hit of a person growing old behind prison bars.
That's part of the same animation, right?
Yeah. That really got to me.
I don't want to have that happen. That's not gonna. He's not gonna get the guy in prison dying. No,
that's not.
Sure hope not. Yeah.
This is not happening. But yeah, Lynn, it's honestly a pleasure talking to you today. And
thank you both for having me, giving me the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, guys, we want to thank everyone for. Oh, sorry, Lynn. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I look forward to seeing you both in person. And
it will be lovely to meet you.
Yeah, I'll be back at Bitcoin Miami. So maybe we can all meet up and grab lunch or something and catch up. That'd be great.
I would. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll see you for the next episode. Thanks again, Lynn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.